There's a moment many women know too well. When you look at your phone, waiting, hoping, and nothing comes. No message, no call, no sign that the man you've been thinking about all day is thinking about you at all. And deep down, the question forms like a slow ache. Why doesn't he feel the same? You gave him your time, your energy, maybe even parts of yourself you hadn't shared with anyone before. You were open, loving, sincere. And yet, with each kind gesture, he drifted. Not closer, but further away. It feels cruel, doesn't it? The more you give, the less he seems to want. You try harder. You become more available, more understanding. But somehow, it makes things worse. What if I told you this isn't your fault? What if I told you there is something invisible standing between your love and his heart, a barrier rooted not in your actions, but in something far deeper, hidden inside his mind? This barrier is ancient, primal. Unless you understand it, you'll keep feeling like love is a chase, and you're always the one running. Today, we begin unraveling that truth. But before we go any further, ask yourself this. Have I ever felt punished for loving too much? If your heart whispered yes, stay with me. Because what you're about to discover will not only explain why that keeps happening, it will offer you the power to change it. I want you to remember one thing as we begin. You are not too much. You were never too much. You were simply giving the wrong kind of love to the wrong part of his psyche, and that is about to change. If you've ever felt invisible to the man you care about, or exhausted from giving too much with so little in return, leave a comment saying, "I felt that too." You're not alone, and this time, we're rewriting the story together. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's not just poetic. It's a mirror into the secret reason why so many women feel powerless in love, and why men often pull away from the very thing they secretly crave. You see, Jung didn't just study minds. He mapped the invisible architecture of the soul, and within every man, he discovered something powerful and deeply fragile. A wound, a primal, invisible ache that whispers to him, "You are not enough." This wound isn't created by you, or even by any one woman. It was there before you met him. It formed in childhood, culture, generations of pressure that taught him to be strong, silent, and vulnerable. To achieve, to conquer, to never show fear. But here's the paradox. That very conditioning, that pressure to appear unshakable, creates a crack in the foundation of his identity. Deep inside, behind the confident smile or the stoic silence, lies a quiet, gnawing fear. Will I ever be enough to be truly loved? Jung called this hidden part of the self the shadow. It's everything a man represses, denies, or hides even from himself. His pain, his shame, his doubt. And this shadow is the very place where real love begins. Because when a woman, a conscious, powerful, awake woman, knows how to see beyond the surface, to gently touch that place, not to wound it with cruelty, but to awaken it with reverence, something extraordinary happens. He begins to feel not just attraction, but devotion, not just interest, but obsession. Why? Because for the first time in his life, he feels seen. Not for his mask, not for his job, his status, his muscles, or charm, but for the part of him he never dared to show, and secretly prayed someone might love. Let me be clear. This isn't about fixing him, or mothering him, or taking responsibility for his healing. No. This is about understanding the map of his soul so you can stop walking blind in relationships. Because once you see the map, you can stop chasing and start inviting. And when you touch that ancient wound with grace, you don't just attract the man. You awaken the man inside him, the protector, the lover, the soul who wants to rise not to impress you, but to be worthy of you. Have you ever sensed that a man's distance wasn't because he didn't care, but because he was hiding something even he couldn't name? If that resonates with you, type, "I've seen his shadow," in the comments. Let's explore it together. Let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone so much that you gave him everything? Your time, your attention, your patience, your heart. You answered his messages right away. You forgave his silence. You excused his confusion. You were always there, always loving, always trying just a little harder to make it work. And yet, the more you gave, the less he showed up. It's a cruel paradox, isn't it? You do all the things love is supposed to be about: generosity, empathy, loyalty, and somehow it backfires. He becomes colder, more distant, less interested. You start asking yourself questions that cut deep. Am I too much? Too intense? Too available? You wonder if maybe you should play games, be less kind, pretend not to care. And still, a part of you thinks, but isn't love supposed to be unconditional? Yes, but unconditional doesn't mean self-erasing. Here is the truth most women aren't told. A man does not fall in love with what he has given. He falls in love with what he must rise to deserve. This isn't about manipulation. It's about the design of his mind. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited long ago. The male brain is wired to pursue what challenges him. Not what's cruel, but what activates his identity. What reflects his deepest value. What makes him feel like a hero, not a consumer. When you give too much, too soon, without allowing him to meet you halfway, you don't inspire him, you rescue him. And the tragedy is, what feels like love to you often feels like pressure to him. Because he hasn't earned it. He hasn't chosen it. And deep down, he knows it. Think of it like this. If someone handed you a priceless gem, but told you nothing about its value, its history, its rarity, would you cherish it, or would you toss it into a drawer, promising to look at it later? That's what happens when you offer all of yourself without discernment, without mystery, without the sacred tension that makes love unforgettable. So what do you do instead? You hold your power, not as punishment, but as invitation. You become the woman whose presence awakens his purpose, whose light challenges him to grow, whose depth makes him realize that to love you, he must love more deeply than he ever has before. And the man who's ready, he will rise. The one who's not will fall away. But either way, you win, because you are no longer auditioning for love. You are the one choosing. If you've ever felt you gave too much, too fast, and were left with nothing in return, type, "I've been there," in the comments. Your heart deserves to be met, not drained. Imagine this. A man is talking to you about his dreams. Not just his job or his daily life, but the vision he holds deep inside, the one he rarely shares. Maybe it slips out in a moment of vulnerability. One day, I want to build something that lasts. Or, sometimes, I wish I could just disappear and write that book I've been thinking about. Most people hear those words and respond with polite encouragement. That sounds great. But you look into his eyes and say something different. Something that cuts through the noise and lands like thunder in his heart. You know what I see in you? I see someone who hasn't even scratched the surface of what he's capable of. That, right there, is the soul mirror. Jung taught us that men long to be seen, not just for what they are, but for what they could be. Not through criticism or comparison, but through a sacred kind of challenge. A loving reflection that says, "I see the greatness in you, and I want to let you forget it." When you look at a man this way, you're not feeding his ego. You're awakening it. You're calling forth his best self. The part of him he may have buried beneath fear, failure, or fatigue. And here's the paradox. It wounds his ego, gently, because it exposes the gap between who he is and who he wants to be. But instead of shutting down, it ignites him. He begins to want to become that man, not just for himself, but for you, the one who saw him before he saw himself. There's a story I'll never forget. One of my clients, Laura, was dating a man who seemed emotionally flat. He wasn't unkind, just uninspired. Every conversation felt like it hovered at the surface. Until one day, she asked him a simple question. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? He paused, and something shifted. He started talking, and as he spoke, his eyes lit up. Laura didn't just listen. She leaned in. At the end, she said, "When you talk about that, your entire face changes. That version of you, he's powerful. And I'd love to see more of him." 2 weeks later, he quit his job. 3 months later, he proposed. Why? Because in her reflection, he saw the man he wanted to become. And suddenly, loving her became the journey to loving his own potential. This isn't flattery. This is sacred alchemy. And neuroscience backs it up. Studies show that when a man feels positively challenged by a woman he admires, his brain releases dopamine and vasopressin, the chemicals tied to passion, bonding, and long-term commitment. His system doesn't just react, it attaches. But this only works when it's real. You must truly see something in him. Not because you're trying to change him, but because you believe in what's already there. So the next time a man opens up to you, even just a little pause before you react. Look past the surface. Speak to the part of him that's still becoming. And when you do, watch how his energy shifts. Watch how he starts showing up with more intention, more depth, more devotion. Because you're not just a partner now. You've become his mirror, his muse, his map back to himself. If you've ever looked at a man and thought, "You don't even know how incredible you could be," comment, "I've seen it," below. That moment of seeing might be where his transformation begins. Let me tell you a secret most women never hear. Love doesn't fade because you're not enough. It fades because you became predictable. Not in your essence, but in your presence. The male brain wired for pursuit, challenge, and mystery is magnetically drawn to what it can't fully grasp. That's why a moment of silence, a pause, a smile that hides more than it reveals, can sometimes stir his longing more than 1,000 words. This is the second secret, the paradox of presence. Here's what that means. When you're always available, always responding, always there, the male brain begins to adapt. It normalizes your presence. It stops producing the chemicals of anticipation, excitement, desire, not because he doesn't care, but because the reward became guaranteed. And in biology, guaranteed means boring. Think of it like music. The silence between the notes is what gives the melody its meaning. Without contrast, there is no beauty, no impact, no craving. The paradox of presence is about becoming the moon. Not the sun that's always visible, but the celestial force that appears, glows, and fades, drawing the tides of his desire without even trying. But let me be clear. This isn't about ghosting him or playing games. It's not about withholding affection or manipulating attention. It's about honoring your own life, your own space, your own rhythm. When a man enters your world, he shouldn't find an empty space waiting to be filled. He should find a garden already in bloom, a life already rich with meaning, a woman already in love with herself. When you live like this, something powerful happens. He starts to wonder, what is she thinking about when she's not with me? He leans in. He asks. He pursues. Because you're no longer just available, you're compelling. I remember a client of mine, her name was Sarah. She used to send long texts about her day. Every detail. He barely responded. One day, I asked her to shift. When he asked about her day, she simply said, "It was transformative. I had some revelations. Maybe I'll share them another time." That night, he called. The next day, he asked her out. And a week later, He confessed he couldn't stop thinking about her. Why? Because mystery isn't manipulation. It's magnetism. When you cultivate passions, friendships, dreams that don't revolve around him, you become the woman who pulls him into your orbit, not the one spinning endlessly in his. So take time for silence. Don't respond immediately, not because you're busy punishing, but because you're busy living. Make space in your life that's sacred, private, yours. That's the paradox. By not giving all of yourself, you make him want all of you. Have you ever felt like being too available made someone pull away? Comment. I've felt that if you've seen this pattern play out and you're ready to shift it. There is a part of every man he hopes no one will ever see. And yet, he longs for someone who can. It's the place he hides, the place he masks with confidence, with silence, with distraction. It's where he keeps his fear of not being enough, of not being respected, of being rejected. Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious part of the self that we bury out of fear and shame. And for men, that shadow often holds the exact emotions they're taught to suppress: doubt, sadness, vulnerability. The aching question, what if I'm not really strong? And yet, here's the truth that transforms everything. When you, as a woman, know how to touch that shadow, not to shame it, but to witness it, you awaken a form of love he's never experienced before. This is the third secret, the sacred shadow. To reach that depth, you don't need strategy. You need courage, because it begins with your own. You go first. You share something real, not a dramatic confession, not a cry for help, but a sacred truth. A soft scar you've learned to love. Maybe it sounds like, sometimes I fear not being enough, but I'm learning to love that part of me too. That moment of honest, embodied vulnerability opens a portal. It signals, this is a safe space. You don't have to pretend with me. And when he steps through that portal, even just a little, and shares a failure, a fear, a wound from long ago, don't rescue him. Don't rush to comfort. Instead, look into his eyes and say, I see that. And I see your strength in facing it. That's what I admire, not perfection, but honesty. In that moment, you wound his ego, and you heal his soul. You deny him the ego's defense mechanisms, and offer him something deeper: recognition. That sacred mirror that reflects not only his light, but also his shadows, and says, you're still worthy, especially because of this. Do you know what happens in his brain at that moment? Neuroscience tells us that when someone feels truly seen in their vulnerability, oxytocin floods their system. The bonding hormone, the trust hormone, the same chemical released between a mother and child or lovers in their most intimate moments. That's not attraction. That's devotion. I remember Amanda, a client of mine who once dated a man known for being emotionally unavailable. No long-term relationships. No real connection. But when Amanda created that space, when she allowed him to confront his own fear of abandonment, his insecurity of not being enough, everything changed. He cried in her arms, and 3 months later, he proposed. Not because she played a game, but because she offered him the one thing no one ever had, a sanctuary for his humanity. This is not about being a therapist or carrying his pain. This is about standing in your full presence so he can drop the mask. You become the woman he never forgets. Not because you made him feel powerful, but because you showed him he didn't have to fake it. If you've ever felt that a man's silence was hiding something deeper, and you wished you could reach it, comment. I want to see his truth, because love isn't built on perfection. It's built on being seen. So now you know the secrets, the soul mirror, the paradox of presence, the sacred shadow. But knowledge without action is just potential, waiting to be born. So how do you take these truths and turn them into a new way of being? How do you apply them not just in theory, but in the way you move, speak, love? It starts with you. The soul mirror begins not with seeing him, but with seeing yourself. Stand in front of a mirror. Look past the surface. Ask, what is the extraordinary woman within me that I've been hiding? Don't rush for answers. Just feel it. Let her rise. Then, when you're with him or any man, stop asking what he wants to hear. Start listening for what he longs to become. When he shares a dream, even a small one, pause. Don't praise. Reflect. Say something like, there's something in your eyes when you talk about that. It's like I see a glimpse of who you're meant to be. That moment, it's lightning to his system. The paradox of presence begins with your calendar, not his. Look at your week. Where are your mysteries? Your passions? Your sacred spaces? Make time for them. Not as a tactic, but as truth. Don't respond instantly to every message. Let him wonder not because you're cold, but because you're alive. When he asks about your day, you don't owe him a log. Give him a glimpse. Say something like, it was a beautiful day. I learned something important about myself. Let it rest there. That mystery? It will echo in his mind long after the conversation ends. The sacred shadow starts when you drop your own mask. Not all at once, but in moments. You're not weak for sharing a fear. You're strong for owning it. The next time you feel pressure to be perfect in front of a man, stop. Take a breath. Say what's real. Maybe. I sometimes fear being too much or not enough. But I'm learning to trust myself anyway. Then, watch. When he shares something back, even something small, don't rush to fix. Just be still. Say, I see you. And I respect the strength it took to share that. That space you just created? That's not romance. That's revolution. And here's one final practice. Choose one of these 3 secrets each week. Focus on it. Live it. Reflect on how it feels. You don't need to do it all at once. Subtlety is your ally. Because when you live from this space, you stop performing. You start radiating. You stop asking, how do I get him to love me? And start asking, how do I love myself so deeply that love can't help but rise around me? If you're ready to choose one of these secrets and practice it this week, comment, this is the one I'll start with, and tell us which one. The first step is the most sacred one of all. There's a line many of us were told, that to be loved, we must shrink. Speak softer, need less. Shine just enough, but never too much. How many times have you dimmed your light so a man wouldn't feel small beside you? How many times have you silenced your truth, smiled when you wanted to challenge, gave when you longed to receive? And what did it cost you? This is where we begin to reclaim what Jung called the integrated feminine, the woman who's not a half, not a role, but a force. She doesn't trade her power for love. She becomes more powerful through love, and in doing so, she awakens a different kind of man. You see, the masculine, in its highest form, doesn't fear your fire. It's drawn to it, not to extinguish, but to witness, to be refined in its heat. When you stand in your wholeness, when you embody the soul mirror, the paradox of presence, and the sacred shadow, not as tactics, but as truth, you don't just attract attention. You command reverence. You're no longer the woman asking, why doesn't he see me? You become the woman he can't stop seeing, even in silence, even in your absence. Because you reflect something he hasn't seen before. Not just beauty, but sovereignty. You're not waiting to be chosen. You're choosing where your energy goes, who gets access, what love feels like in your world. And this shift, it's not just emotional. It's magnetic, biological, measurable. Studies show that when a woman owns her boundaries, her passion, her truth, testosterone levels in men rise. Not because she flirts, but because she radiates. She becomes the moon that pulls the tides, the gravity his whole system responds to. So stop asking how to make him stay. Ask instead, what do I want to stand for? Stop trying to become the woman he needs. Become the woman you need to be. And let the right man rise to meet you. That is the power of the integrated feminine. If you're done shrinking, done apologizing, done waiting, comment, I choose my full self. Because that's the woman he'll never forget. And the woman you were always meant to be. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that love was about winning someone over, about getting chosen, about being enough for him. But what if it was never about him? What if every heartbreak, every silence, every moment of confusion or rejection was never meant to make you question your worth, but to lead you back to it? Because here's the truth. This isn't about him. It's about you. It's about the version of you that wakes up when you stop chasing, when you stop shrinking, when you stop performing to fit into a world that was never designed for your fullness. It's about the version of you who knows, I don't have to be loved by everyone. I just have to love myself deeply enough to choose who gets access to me. When you embody the wisdom of Jung's insights, not just to attract devotion, but to rewire your own sense of deserving, you stop trying to earn love and start inviting it. Because the moment you realize you were never too much is the moment you begin to call in the kind of man who sees you as just right. The kind of man who doesn't fall for your performance, but for your truth. The one who doesn't feel threatened by your light, but illuminated by it. And yet, even if he never arrives, even if love comes wrapped in unexpected forms, you'll know something deeper. You didn't lose anything by loving. You didn't fail because someone didn't choose you. You won because you finally chose yourself. This journey, this video, these secrets, they were never about manipulation or conquest or tricks. They were about remembering who you were before the world told you to be less, before he made you doubt your worth, before you forgot your own fire, and now you remember. So the next time your heart aches for his message, for his affection, for his validation, pause, look inward. Ask, what does the woman I'm becoming need from me right now? Give her that. Give her your loyalty, your patience, your tenderness. Because when you love you, completely, unapologetically, you shift the field around you. The man who's meant for that frequency, he'll feel it. He'll find you. And more importantly, you will find you. If you're done making it about him and ready to make it about your own wholeness, comment, I choose me. Because your revolution begins there. Real devotion, the kind that lasts, the kind that transforms, doesn't come from games or perfect timing or clever strategies. It comes from power. But not the power we've been taught to chase. Not domination, not performance. It's the power of presence, the power of truth, the power of being fully, unapologetically you. When a woman owns her fire, her softness, her boundaries, her depth, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she's flawless, but because she's real. Not because she fits into his world, but because she creates her own. The women who awaken real love in men, they don't beg, they don't chase, they don't collapse to be chosen. They stand, and in their standing, they offer a mirror. Not a mirror that flatters, but one that reveals. This is who you could be, if you're ready. And the man who is ready, he rises, not to possess her, but to walk beside her. That's the alchemy. That's the secret. When you no longer need devotion, you attract it. When you no longer seek validation, you embody it. When you no longer fear being alone, you call in a love that never leaves. Because the greatest seduction is authenticity, and the greatest love is the one that honors your wholeness. So this is where we end, but also where everything begins. Not with him, with you. You in your light and your shadow. You in your mystery and your clarity. You as the invitation, not the pursuit. Walk forward now, not to get love, but to be it. If something in this journey lit a fire in you, even a small one, comment, "I'm ready to rise." Let this be your declaration, your new beginning.